Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Glory Glory Man United podcast. I'm host as always, Kyle Quinn. And joining me today is Callum McFadden, who's a writer for the World Football Index. Welcome back to the show, Callum.
Pleasure, Kyle. Always look forward to it, and plenty to talk about regarding United as always.
Yeah, absolutely. The last time you were on, it was just after the 4-3. No, sorry, the win on penalties against Coventry in the FA Cup, and Coventry probably nearly won 4-3 in that game, and we were discussing that day Ten Hag's future, and we both thought his time was up, but it's taken another 6 months for Ten Hag to be dismissed, largely because of winning the FA Cup final against Manchester City. And Ruben Amorim has been appointed the permanent manager. And yesterday was his first game in charge away to Ipswich. Now, the table doesn't tell the full story with Ipswich. They've had a lot of draws. There have been some narrow defeats, and they obviously won at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I think, judging by all the running stats, they've ran the most in the Premier League, and we saw that yesterday. At times, it felt as if there was 14 blue shirts on the pitch, and because they were working that hard. And United, 81 seconds it took for United to score, and we thought, great, this is the best possible start to the new era. But we were brought crashing back down to earth again because Ipswich largely dominated most of the game, in my opinion, had a majority of the chances. Onana had another superb game for United. What a season he's having. And Ahmad, I thought, was brilliant for United too, obviously assisting the goal for United, but it was all round brilliant. Mazarahi always a 7 out of 10 every week at least, but the rest of the team were very, very poor. And there were some interesting comments from Ruben Amorim after the game, when he said, "My players were thinking too much in the game. You can feel it, not just on the ball, but where they are supposed to be." See, it's going to take time for the United players to get used to the new system and the new structure, and at least take a few weeks, possibly even a couple of months. So, what was your thoughts on yesterday's game then, Callum?
Yeah, I think it was, the sort of game where you could tell that it was the first game under a new manager. He's only had a couple of days to work with the players. And as he said post match, it is going to take time for the patterns of play that he wants to implement on a consistent basis to be adopted by the players and feel natural to them. He talked yesterday about, Dallo was encouraged to continually go inside and receive the ball as a midfielder in the past, whereas now he wants him to stay wide, when he's playing at fullback. So that's going to be a change for him. He also talked about the likes of Zirkzee and others having to make that gut busting run into the box, to try and get on the end of crosses rather than maybe waiting on deflections and pullbacks. So it's certainly going to take time, but overall, I think the start was very good. I thought for the first sort of 15 minutes or so, United kept the ball at times quite well. And then I felt that, some of the old frailties started to come back where it looked as if the United players started to tire quicker than the Ipswich players did. And I think for me, that's something that's going to have to be worked on. Ruben Amorim's talked about the players needing to sprint back when they lose the ball, and win it back a lot quicker than they've been doing it in the past. And that will take time, especially with no pre-season. I think that's something that we might not see the best of until maybe after the Christmas period. I think between now and the busy run of fixtures coming up, it'll be about getting as many points as possible and then maybe seeing a difference into the new year, when he's got more time to work with the players.
Yeah, Amorim has said if we try to just win games and don't risk nothing in this moment, I guarantee this time next year we will have the same issues. We have to address the new idea and try to be better. Yeah, so he's trying to implement a new system, a new structure, a new way of playing, rather than just being pragmatic and trying to get results. He thinks that will have a long-term benefit, and we will have to be suffer a little bit in the meantime. So we might not see the benefit of the so-called new manager bounce for another few weeks or maybe a month or two. So I'll be willing to put up with this for a while as long as we see the fruits at the end of it. And Brush here, who's a regular co-host with myself, he says here in the comments, a long road ahead as this team is not suited to possession football. But Ahmad impressed in his new role at right wing back, although I think his qualities would be better served further up the field. Mazarahi looked comfortable. Was a tad surprised he was at right centre back and not a wing back, probably because of the lack of availability of centre backs. Um, and he's been our signing of the season. And Onana exceptional. Long may it continue. Yeah, and the less said about the forwards, better. Yeah, forwards still really struggling yesterday. But we get on to a couple of positives first. Andre Onana has just proven everybody wrong this season, isn't he, Callum?
He has. He's been very dependable, and yesterday he was, absolutely outstanding at times in terms of, making quick reaction saves from close range, and also having to make saves that were maybe more considered, where he had to really think about where he was going to move his body and get down low or get up high to tip balls over the bar. So for me, his performance yesterday was complete from a goalkeeping perspective. There was very little he could do for the goal with the deflection that it took. If it didn't take the deflection, given the form of him in the game, you would have backed him to do something about it. But deflections can take that away from you. But he's certainly a player who was criticised an awful lot last year, and rightly so at times for his level of performance. So, in my opinion, it's only right he gets the praise that he deserves this season, because even under Ten Hag, I thought he's, in a way, probably sums up how poor United have been by saying this, but I think he was probably United's best player in many games this season, and that maybe shows how far United have sort of fallen in recent months. But as I say, I think he's had an exceptional start to the season, and long may it continue.
Yeah, you don't want your goalkeeper being your best player. We've seen that too often with David De Gea winning all those Sir Matt Busby awards. It is a sign of a team that's struggling, and yeah, I want to see our goalkeeper doing really well, but at the same time, I don't want him to be the standout player. I want to see a few more outfield players standing out, like Amad Diallo, who was brilliant again yesterday. And I'm not surprised that he was selected for the wing back role, because he does work really hard without the ball. And he's exceptional young player, so skillful, just glides past defenders. And that first goal was all him. Rashford, it'll go down as a Rashford goal, but it was all Diallo for me. And I thought he was going to win the game single handedly at the end as well. He just went past a few defenders, and I think the shot was blocked in the end. Um, but yeah, he's just been exceptional in recent weeks, especially since the beginning of Van Nistelrooy's interim phase. And I felt as if Ten Hag wasn't really giving him a consistent chance. He was playing now and again, making the odd sub appearance, starting a few games, and then dropping out of the team for a few months, and then he just wasn't getting a consistent run of games. But now that he's got more chances this season, we're seeing what he can really do. And to be honest, our other forwards are so out of form that if he wasn't playing so well, I think the situation for United would be even worse. If you look at even that game against Pauk in the Europa League, it was him who single-handedly won us that game. You know, game that we should be winning at Old Trafford against the Greek champions. But if he wasn't there, then we might have drawn that game 0-0. So he's probably been United's best attacking player, certainly in the last month or so, hasn't he, Callum?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he's relished the opportunities when he has been given them. And you're right, for whatever reason, Eric Ten Hag was reluctant to give him a run of games, but Ruud van Nistelrooy put faith in him, and he certainly paid Ruud back with performances, goals, and assists. And he started yesterday as United's best outfield player for me. I thought he was exceptional. You mentioned the goal that Rashford scores; it's all down to his work rate and endeavour and quality of delivery. Early on in the game, and he could have won it, as you rightly say, Kyle, at the end. So for me, he is a young player that has got so much development in him, and I think a manager like Ruben Amorim coming in is perfect for someone like him, because Amorim's shown in the past, whether that be at Braga, whether that be at Sporting, that he's willing to invest time and effort into young players and improve them. And for me, Ahmad is in the right place at the right time, and he's got a manager who I think will believe in him.
Yeah, and he can probably play in several positions as well. He could play as one of those number 10s, of course, and he can play at wing back in this formation. So yeah, I think he's going to be an important player for United going forward. Now, Garnacho is our top scorer this season, and that's brilliant from a 20-year-old winger. But clearly, he's got some developing still to go, because yesterday was frustrating again on the counter attack. There was one that really stuck out where he tried to play the ball to Rashford far too late, and it was intercepted. He should have been playing that ball much earlier to Rashford. And another counter attack, he held on to it too long. He got surrounded, and the ball was taken off him. Albeit there weren't many options. Um, but yeah, his decision making isn't great. I feel as if he has a bit of a selfish streak to him, and he's shooting too much rather than looking for teammates. And yeah, it's definitely some development still to go with Garnacho, but I wouldn't go over the top with the criticism, because he's still 20 at the end of the day, isn't he, Callum?
Well, that's it. He's a very exciting young talent, and he is raw. He's a confidence player as well. All flamboyant wingers tend to be confidence players, where they hit veins of form where they look unstoppable, and if they go through a frustrating patch, they can maybe be a bit harder on themselves than maybe other players would be. And I think as well that confidence and decision making will come with experience. He's a player that United took in at a young age. They've developed. They've given him opportunities in the first team. You mentioned the fact that he scored goals this season. He's a player that is going to improve. And just as I said with Ahmad, I think he's got a manager who I think will get more out of him than previous managers have been able to. And that's not to say previous managers didn't get a lot out of him, because they clearly did, because he's forced his way in to the first team picture on a consistent basis. But there is a lot of development there. There is a lot of potential there, and I think he's got a manager that will help him fulfil it. And it's just about for Amorim now looking at players like Ahmad, looking at Garnacho, looking at Lenny Yoro when he gets in the team as your sort of three crown jewels as young players in and around that first team picture. And then longer term, it's about putting the right pieces in and around them. Yes, some of those will be at the club. You think someone that Bruno Fernandes is going to have a lot of faith from the new manager. Martinez, you think when he's fit, will get the faith of the new manager as well, particularly with that back three. The back three probably suits him more as well. Onana's obviously been really good. So there's lots of players that I think Amorim will look forward to working with. And as I say, longer term, when he gets to recruit his own players and put his own stamp on it, that should only help the likes of Ahmad and Garnacho when they're playing in a more settled 11 that the manager has built himself.
Yeah, I would say he will improve some players and develop some players, and others, I think they're probably on borrowed time. Um, I think Ericsson and Casemiro are probably on borrowed time because of their age. I see this season Menu and Ugarte will probably be the midfield pairing in most games, uh, unless there's rotation. Yesterday, obviously, Menu's been out for a month or so, and Ugarte was only back from Uruguay on Thursday evening or something like that, so he didn't start the game. He only had two training sessions, I think. Um, Rashford has come under a lot of criticism again yesterday, despite scoring after 80 seconds. Um, and he was playing up top yesterday, which is a position that hasn't really been his favourite in his career. Um, and people were questioning his attitude again yesterday, which is sad to see. And when it's the new manager's first game, you want to see every single player trying their heart out, trying to impress the new manager. So unless he finishes the season strongly, he could be someone that could be moved on in the summer. Um, Xerxes and Hoyland are really struggling this season. Xerxes in particular. They were brought on as substitutes yesterday, and they had zero impact. Everyone will remember Xerxes' shot that went miles over the crossbar. But the Xerxes give the ball away a number of times too. Hoyland, I think, is just really struggling. Gets into a lot of physical tussles with defenders and comes off second best. And he's running into the channels a lot. He's not been able to create much from there, which is seen yesterday again, and not really getting into the right positions. And I can I think Hoyland probably has the best chance of turning this around. Um, the manager will try to work with him. People have said he can hopefully do to Hoyland what he done to Gyökeres at Sporting, but Xerxes for me probably looks like the most likely to not succeed at the moment. But either way, you can't be relying on two players who are struggling for confidence up top. On Rashford, who hasn't had a great season so far either, on top of the really poor one he had last season. So for me, I think the manager is almost certainly going to want to sign a goal scorer in the summer. How do you see it, Callum?
I think, as I say, in terms of Hoyland, I've said consistently for since he's joined the club, I actually feel for him in the sense that if he had joined United and there was a Harry Kane type figure at the club who was the number one striker, I think Hoyland would have been able to learn a lot from that player. He would have then stepped into maybe less important games and bedded himself into the club, then got a run of games as the sort of number one striker, and maybe get that bit older, or there was a plan to sort of transition them so that he would become the number one. Whereas I feel like, given the fact that he arrived from Atalanta, who are obviously an incredibly exciting side under Gian Piero Gasperini, but going from Atalanta in the phase that they were in to joining United, was always going to be a big jump. And I think that's something that, I think has affected him. And undoubtedly, he needs, time to learn, because he's a very raw player. We've talked about Ahmad and Garnacho being raw. But I think when you're a winger, you maybe get a little bit more leeway because naturally you can drift in and out of games. Whereas as a striker, especially when you're the starting number 9 for Manchester United, there's a lot of expectation on you and the goals that you provide, the assists that you provide, the way that you can hold the ball up. And as I say, I feel for him that he's got that pressure thrust on him so young. But at the same time, it's the duty of United to address that. And as you say, I think with the likes of Rashford and Zirkzee not necessarily looking fantastic consistently this season, along with Hoyland, that's a position that will certainly have to be addressed. With that, though, you've got to hope that Amorim can get more out of Zirkzee, can get more out of Hoyland. With Rashford for me is a confidence player. We saw it a few years ago. If he can get a few goals in a row, a few really good performances in a row, he sort of thrives on that, and he can keep going and going and going and going. But on the other hand, if he goes through a real barren patch, you sometimes look at him and think, is he ever going to get out of it? So if Amorim can find a way to help Rashford flourish with goals and assists and get that confidence level back up, of course he can be an asset at United. However, with a new manager coming in, inevitably they're going to want to bring in their own players at some point. And whether it's Rashford or Casemiro or whoever it may be, there will be casualties that the manager thinks it's time to move them on and get one of my own players in. I'm not saying for a minute that's definitely going to be Rashford, but it's certainly going to be a few players in the team. And there might be a few surprises with that, because he will want his own players for his own system. And it's up to Marcus and all the players at the club at the moment to prove to the manager that they're a good fit and that they can complement what he's trying to do.
Yeah, I don't think all three of them are going to work out. Hopefully, at least one of them does. Um, I can see one of Rashford, Xerxes, or Hoyland being moved on, and hopefully one of them can improve and become a reliable goal scorer for Manchester United. Of course, Rashford has had a 30 goal season, but that's now 2 seasons ago. If he has two poor seasons in a row, it'd be interesting to see if the manager wants to keep him beyond that. So it's a big 6 months for Marcus Rashford. Um, some people reckon Xerxes might be more suited to Serie A, and yeah, he's really struggling for confidence at the moment, and it's very hard to get that back when you're in the pressure cooker environment at Manchester United, and you coming under so much criticism from fans, and you don't have a great goal record to begin with. I don't know. I think Xerxes is drowning out there, and it wouldn't surprise me if he's moved on after just one season. But we'll see how it goes. Hoyland, he's been here 15 months, and he's only had a 2 month spell where he's looked really good. Outside of that, he struggled. But as you say, he should have been uh, a backup striker to a more experienced one. Not being the main man at United, that was really unfair on the player. But I think that's what the manager looked to address. Be it Gyökeres or somebody else can come in as the main goal getter, and then Hoyland can be back up to that player. But let's see how it goes. Yeah, as I've said, there's going to be casualties, and there's going to be players who are going to thrive under this manager. And if we just look at the back line now, there was only two senior fit centre halves yesterday. Was Evans and Delict, and so Mazarahi had to be part of the back three. Evans, I thought, despite how good he's been for United since he arrived in the summer of 23, yesterday he started to look his age against some very young, dynamic Ipswich attackers. Was in 50-50 challenges. He was getting there second. Delict, I thought, didn't have a great game. It amazes me how much the height of Delict, and he doesn't win, you know, aerial duels when he should. Um, Luke Shaw made his long-awaited comeback. Hasn't played for United since February, and he come on for Evans at left centre back. Would have liked to have seen Shaw at left wing back, but maybe the manager thought he's not fit enough at the moment for that. I thought Dallo really struggled yesterday. Dallo's effort on goal was like a pass back, and I thought overall he had a pretty poor game, and he's had a pretty dreadful season. In fairness, I want to see. I always want to see left-footed players on that side as well. Um, Martinez is out at the moment with a back injury. Lani Yaro yet to make his debut. Didn't travel yesterday, so I can. It does make sense for him in a home Europa League game against Bodo Glimt for Laniero maybe to play about 70 minutes or so in that game and make his debut rather than in an away game against a tricky team like Ipswich. But yeah, I think, as I've said, the midfield, I think for the rest of the season, for the most part, it'll probably be Menu and Ugarte. The back three, which I see uh, for most of the season, will be Lenny Yarrow at right centre back. I think Ligt in the centre, and then Martinez at left centre back. Obviously, Maguire, Lindelof, and Evans are there as rotational options whenever they're fit. But I see them being the main uh, back three for the majority of the games going forward. Is that how you see it, Callum?
Yeah, I think obviously Onana picks himself. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the wing backs in the system. I agree with you on the centre backs. In terms of wing backs, will Mazraoui, will he move to left wing back at times? Will he start on the right? Or will he still retain that sort of central position at times as well? It'll be interesting to see how that goes, because if Luke Shaw can get back to full fitness and go on a sustained run of being able to play week in, week out, will he be someone that automatically starts on that left hand side, or will the manager see it in a different way? So I agree with you on the centre backs, and the wing backs in particular do interest me because, as we say, if Shaw can play really consistently and he's back to full fitness, you would expect him to start every week. But at the same time, the manager might have different ideas.
Yeah, he probably doesn't know his best team at the moment yet. Probably wants to get a look at everybody before making a decision. And obviously, not everybody was fit and available yesterday, so he can only work with what he has. He even had a 16-year-old on the bench yesterday, given the lack of options at the back. Um, but yeah, I anticipate that his strongest 11, when everybody's available, it is tough to pick. But if we're going on what we've seen so far this season, then as I said, Onana, Delict, Martinez, Leniaro would be at the back. The wing backs, you got to say, on these Evans, Ahmad at right wing back, Shaw left wing back, and Menu and Ugarte in midfield. And up top, as it gets really tricky because there's most of them are so out of form. You'd say Garnacho, Bruno, and then Rashford. You couldn't say you'd pick Hoyland or Xerxes at the moment. Yeah, we're we're not looking very strong up top at the moment. Hopefully, the manager can turn that around, be it by improving players or signing, better players. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who his strongest 11 will be whenever we play the likes of Arsenal and Man City, and that's coming up very soon. We need to get 3 points on the board against Everton, and then just hope for the best against Arsenal at the Emirates. City, it might be an opportunity there to get a result because they've lost 5 games in a row, as everybody knows, which is a massive surprise. So we might be playing City at the right time, Callum.
Well, the thing with City, as you say, is at the moment they're in this really, really poor run. Guardiola's never had a run like this in his career either. So it's one of those where City might go and beat Liverpool, and suddenly their season's back on, and they get that momentum firing, and they get themselves going. Or if they lose another game or even draw, that negativity is just going to creep in, and you just never know how long this run can go on for. So certainly United could be facing them at the right time if their form continues as is at the moment. The only worry I have, on the other hand, is if they can say get a result against Liverpool, could they get their mojo back? And maybe you're playing them when they're starting to pick up that momentum and get on one of those runs that they're notorious for. So it's certainly going to be an intriguing couple of weeks, as you say, with the likes of Arsenal and City. But against Everton and Forest at home, you've got to be taking 6 points from those 2 games as a minimum.
Yes, absolutely. Forest had a flying start to the season, but I think they've lost their last 2 games. So those games are at home against Everton and Forest. United need to be winning their home games. And whatever we get in away games against Arsenal and City are a bonus. But there might be an opportunity for United away against it. We have beaten City away a few times, definitely under Solskjaer. Um, we do have a half decent record at that ground. I know Mourinho famously won there when Pogba scored twice and we came from 2-0 down. I'd love another one of those types of results, but we're pretty toothless up top, and we really need to improve on that if we're going to be winning big games. But yeah, the manager's really got his work cut out. If he didn't know already from training, he will know from his first match experience and just how difficult this job's going to be. Um, what did you make of yesterday? There was a few interesting incidents um, after the game. Uh, Ed Sheeran interrupted Ruben Amorim's interview by coming over to talk to Jimmy Redknapp, and it was funny the way Ruben Amorim said I think the presenter Kelly Cates said, "This is Ed Sheeran. I don't know if you'd be interested in talking to him, Ruben." He says, "I don't want." So he had no interest in talking to this celebrity whatsoever, and probably thought it was quite rude that this guy interrupted his interview. Ed Sheeran did apologise on social media today, so I think that's maybe the end of the matter. He is, of course, a shareholder in Ipswich Town, but perhaps he should have waited until the interview was over before coming over to speak to Jamie. And then another funny incident. Was, was Roy Keane had an altercation with an Ipswich fan. He must have been presumably insulting him from the sidelines, and most ex-pros will just ignore abuse from the sidelines, but Roy puts his microphone down and goes over to offer him a rumble in the car park. He never changed, Roy. What's your thoughts on all that, Callum?
The one with Kiro I thought was absolutely fantastic. That'd be interesting to see that guy's reaction when he's probably thinking, "Oh, he's just going to ignore me," and the people around me will lap it up. But when Roy walked over to him and said, I'll get you in the car park," it'd be interesting to know if his heart was racing and how he was actually feeling. Because I certainly wouldn't like Roy to be challenging me to a fight in any car park, I can assure you. In terms of the Ed Sheeran one, he's claimed obviously he thought they weren't on air at that moment in time, but when the Manchester United manager's there, that would suggest they are, but I suppose it's just a small thing. And the other thing that Amorim said that I thought was quite funny, he said, "I've probably spoke more to the media in the last week than I have in the whole 4 years I had at Sporting." And that's something he said he would speak to United's Director of Communications, Andrew Ward, about. So I don't think he's keen on having to continually speak to the media when he necessarily maybe doesn't have to. and it'll be interesting to see how the club handle that, because he made the point of saying he wants to speak less and coach more, and I think that's maybe something that he'll look to do in the coming weeks. How United get around that, I don't quite know, but it'll be interesting to see if they try, because it's certainly going to be intriguing to see how all that plays out, because the media in the Premier League, as you and I know, Kyle, is just through the roof.
Yeah, he's had to do a couple of interviews at MUTV, one with Guy Neville on Sky Sports, and he had to do a press conference yesterday. Obviously, he had to do, all the rights holders interviews. I think these interviews on the pitch, I don't think are quite working out. There seem to be, it opens it up for disruption, be it from, you know, celebrities or fans are interrupting these pitch side interviews. So maybe they should just stick to having them in the mix zone or in studios going forward. But yeah, it did provide some entertainment, I suppose. But I wanted to talk to you about Bruno Fernandes. I thought he had another poor game yesterday. Had a wee bit of an uplift in form under Ruud van Nistelrooy, but unfortunately he's taken another step back yesterday, and it took him a long time to even score his first goal this season. I think it was against Leicester in the League Cup. Um, do you think he's the right man to be captain of Manchester United in the long term?
I think at the moment he'll hold on to that. Whether he is in the long term, I suppose it would depend on who comes into the club, because is there an obvious sort of person that could take that mantle on at the moment? I'm not so sure. In terms of how he gets on under Amorim, I think he will get on fine. I think obviously it's a new system for him as well. Playing behind the striker, obviously alongside another number 10 in many ways, which will make it really intriguing, and the width coming from obviously both wing backs. So I think he'll be fine. I think yesterday the problem he's got at the moment is he probably doesn't know who's going to be playing up front on a weekly basis. He's obviously had Rashford yesterday. He's had Xerxes 8 times this season. He's had Højlund as well. So I think they need to get into a consistent run with a system and a consistent run of squad selection, so that he knows what kind of runs or what kind of passes that Rashford or Xerxes or Højlund or whoever it may be would prefer when they're playing through the middle. Whereas at the moment, he's probably finding himself having to second guess himself, because normally Rashford would be sort of pinned to that left-hand touchline, so he'd be playing a different kind of pass into him, like the long passes that Amorim referred to yesterday is the sort of passes that Fernandes looks to make by default, maybe, rather than being more considered and playing it short and moving himself. So I think it will come down to the consistency of team selection and how quickly the players get up to speed with the system, because at the moment, as he alluded to, they are obviously overthinking maybe where they are on the pitch and what's expected of them. But I think that rustiness will go away once they get into the swing of things and the more games come thick and fast.
Another selection which I will be watching with interest is Mason Mount. The manager has been very complimentary towards him and saying that he can operate in two positions in his system. Came on very late yesterday, and he's very energetic, and he's an excellent presser, and I can see him fitting in as one of the number 10s. So yesterday, one of the two tens were essentially Garnacho and Bruno, but I can definitely see Mason Mount getting his opportunity in that position, and I would love to see it happen for him. Ruben was actually talking about how much Mason really wants it as well. Obviously, he's been injury ravaged since he came to the club. I just hope that he can stay fit and have a consistent run in the team, and we can see the Mason that we saw at Chelsea when they won the Champions League, Callum.
Well, I think as well, one of the things that a lot of people talked about when he arrived at United was his best position in that Chelsea team, and even when he was come through as a kid on loan at Vitesse and Derby County, was as a number 10, having that opportunity to take the ball from the sort of deep line midfielder, then spinning and run at defenders or play a through ball into the striker. Whereas at United, when you were playing a sort of 4-2-3-1, Bruno Fernandes was always going to be that number 10. And if you wanted to get into the team, you were going to have to play one of the sort of deeper midfield roles. Whereas now, this system opens up and arguably allows him to flourish in a position that is natural to him. And if you've got him flourishing like he was in that Chelsea season you alluded to, along with Fernandes, that should give a lot of creativity for whoever the number 9 is, and it could be a mouth-watering prospect if he can get up to fitness and find that consistency again.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to see it work out for Mason. And if he can stay fit, then there's a definite chance that we can see the best of him under Ruben Amorim. So Chow, thanks for joining us. He's a first time listener to the podcast. And he says, first time here, Ruben had a huge job in his hands. Ineos must back our manager if they want to succeed in the future. Yeah, I think um, he will be able to improve certain players, but they have to give him players in the summer that are going to add more quality to the squad. And obvious areas are up top on that wing back. Eddie, thanks for joining us as always. He says he still needs to see the Roy Keane incident. Yeah, he's not going to be disappointed there. And Eddie also says this is where Amorim would probably clash with United. The United have had a culture of media distraction, and they need to fix that and protect the manager. Yeah, but there's no way out of talking to Sky Sports. They were the live broadcaster, and yeah, I seen somebody on social media earlier saying that Amorim should boycott Sky Sports the same way as Fergie boycotted the BBC for years. No way he'd get away with that because they are the main Premier League broadcaster in the UK, and I'm sure every club has an obligation to speak to them after the game. So I don't see any way out of that. I would just suggest that Sky Sports do interviews in the mix zone and not on the pitch because there's too many distractions. It becomes a bit of a circus really at times. But just to do a quick rundown of the player ratings. There's going to be lots of highs and lows here. Andrew Onana definitely gets an 8. Having an excellent season. Mazarahi, he's a 7 as always. Delict thought had a bit of a mixed performance yesterday. It'd be a 6 for him. Evans, I think, struggled. Unfortunately, looked his age for perhaps the first time since he came back. Be a 5 for Evans. Ericsson and Casemiro, Ipswich absolutely dominated the midfield. They just looked so much younger than United, and I'm not surprised that the two midfielders I think were substituted in the end. And as I say, I think the Menu and Ugarte will be the pairing, and perhaps even Mason Mount. Who knows? In going forward, I just don't think playing two almost 33-year-olds in the centre of the park is a good idea in the Premier League. You can maybe get away with one of them, but not both of them in the same game. So they would both get 4s for me. Dallow I thought was very poor and would get a 4. Ahmad, absolutely excellent. United's best outfield player, would get an 8. Bruno, very quiet afternoon for him, and he would only get a 4. Garnacho, a 5. I thought, yes, his final ball wasn't great. The decision making still not up to scratch at times. But there was one occasion where Garnacho went past two Nzabi and played a left footed cross into the middle. And again, there was just nobody there. I think maybe this is after Hoyland and Jerksey came on, and somebody should be gambling and getting into the 6 yard box and looking for a tap in. That's something that's really frustrated me in recent years is the lack of Chicharito or Solskjaer or Van Nistelrooy gambling and getting into the 6 yard box. And we'd get so many more goals because so many crosses just seem to go straight across the 6 yard box and nobody's there to tap it in. Yeah, Garnacho would get a 5, and Rashford he scored and he has to get credit for that. But I thought that's where his performance peaked in the 82nd after 81 seconds. So I'll give him a 6 because he scored. And yeah, and Amorim on his debut as manager, I'll give him a 6. But yeah, I'm not blaming him for the draw yesterday. He's obviously seen that he's got a lot of work to do. But I suppose in a strange kind of a way, if United just had a new manager bounce, and they won 3 or 4-0, it would paper over the cracks. This way, with us still showing a lot of the same weaknesses, the manager's able to see what the problems are and work on them in the coming weeks. So, in a strange kind of a way, the draw with Ipswich might be a blessing in disguise. Do you know what I mean, Callum?
Yeah, I think as well the fact that, pardon me, he also wants to play his own system is good because it puts the players outside their comfort zone. And as you say, if he came in and kept everything as is, and they'd another couple of really good performances on the road or whatever it may be, people would say, "Oh, not a lot needs fixed there," and things aren't as bad as you look at United. Whereas you are seeing the reality now, and with this new system, he will see the limitations of certain players as well. So for me, I think it's positive for him, longer term, that things are obviously going to be realistic for him rather than maybe coming in and having a run of fixtures that would be quite straightforward, and maybe you could get 5, 6 wins in the trot and suddenly you maybe get blinded by that and think you've got an unbelievable squad. So I think he will have seen a lot yesterday already. He's commented in the media, of course, post match, that he's seen a lot that frustrated him and a few things that he liked. So I think that's going to be beneficial for him because, as I say, he will know what he wants from his team, what he wants his team to look like, what he wants to see from them in possession, out of possession. And I think, he's come in at a good time where, come the summer, when there's that transfer window, obviously I know January, but that's not really the best time to bring in players to really change everything. So I think come the summer, he'll have an idea of the positions that he wants as a matter of urgency, and maybe some of the players he wants as well, given the sort of characteristics that he likes from his teams of the past.
So, just finally, we've been linked with the likes of Victor Gyökeres and Alfonso Davis, and even the young 17-year-old winger or slash right wing back at Sporting Lisbon. We've been linked with him as well. Is it Giovanni Quinta, 17-year-old? Um, Callum, who would you like to see United sign in the summer?
I think that a centre forward in the ilk of a Gyökeres is the obvious one for me, because I think United need an out and out number nine that can really score goals, hold the play up, bring others into the game, win flick-ons, and give you the ability to play in different ways. Because one of the things that Amorim's Sporting side did well against Manchester City was they were able to play their way out at times, but they weren't afraid to go direct and let Gyökeres win flick-ons or hold the ball up. And I think that's something that United need, because it's all well and good having a possession-based team where you can try and walk it into the net as such, but I think United need a striker who has that physicality, who has that presence. He's just been interim manager, but think of someone like a Ruud van Nistelrooy who could hold the ball up, who could spin and go in behind, who could score all types of goals. Yes, those type of players are going to be hard to get, but United need to prioritise trying to get the players that are on the agenda of the manager. Don't go down the route of trying to sign 5 or 6 project signings because you think it's this big long-term plan. Let the manager come up with a set of positions that he needs as a matter of urgency. Then it's down to Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, the recruitment team in the background, to go out and present names to the manager that they can work together on to get the profile that will suit United. But I think for me, the position that's crying out is a centre forward, because United just don't have a centre forward of the quality that they should have at this moment in time. And I think if that can be addressed, it won't be the only thing that needs to be addressed long term, but I think it would be a big start.
Yeah, and just to throw another name in there is Mateus Cunha at Wolves. He's had a great 2024. Um, Now he hasn't had a great goal scoring record up until this year at various clubs, but he's having a strong spell at Wolves, and if he finishes the season with 18 to 20 goals, maybe he is someone that we could look at as an alternative to Gyökeres. Because again, we don't want to be falling into the trap of signing the whole Sporting Lisbon team. Like it felt as if Ten Hag was bringing in too many former Ajax players. We need to, think outside of the obvious and outside of players that the managers worked with in the past. Um, Alfonso Davis is a very exciting link. Now he's going to be leaving Bayern on a free at the end of the season, it seems, and Real Madrid have been linked. But look, we've already beaten Real Madrid to the sign of Laniero, so why not Davis as well then, Callum?
Well, I suppose you never know in that regard. And with a new manager, a new project, maybe it could be something that would entice him. The only thing that I would say is, I imagine if he was going to come to England, the likes of Arsenal and Manchester City and maybe even Liverpool would be looking at him as well. So I think, although Real Madrid are obviously the team that have been mentioned at the moment, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a host of competition in England as well. Because if you think of those fullback positions, Zinchenko, Timber, obviously at Arsenal. Obviously, Tierney's still in the background there. Robertson at Liverpool's getting that bit older. Guardiola at Manchester City starting to struggle a little bit in the left. Could he make the transition back to being a centre half? So there's definitely options for the other clubs to consider as well. But if he's a player that's available and willing to come to United, then I think that would be a very good transfer to sort of build, because he's a player who's very capable going forward and obviously is a good defender as well.
Yeah, and we know that Omar Barada likes a coup. He Leniaro was the first one, and then he was very efficient in getting Ruben Amorim in to replace Ten Hag. So the Ashworth Barada combination gives me hope that we can not only sign, you know, just any players, that we can actually sign players of quality that other clubs are in for. That was a criticism of the Woodward era, that we'd only sign players that nobody else was interested in. But we've seen already under Ineos that we're able to sign players that we have strong competition for. So that certainly gives me hope. And Ruben Amorim, I just have a good feeling that he's going to be the one. I think we waited. I obviously don't remember this because I'm too young, but we waited a long time between Sir Matt Busby and Sir Alex Ferguson to get the right manager. But I feel as if Ruben Amorim's going to be the fourth United manager to win the league. What do you think, Callum?
Well, I think he's certainly, for me, what I've been impressed with, he seems to have a real aura around him, a real confidence. And I just hope that things can improve on the pitch with results to give him that confidence and swagger and help him maintain that. Because we've seen over the last decade, managers, players be bogged down by the negativity that can surround United at times. Whereas I think Amorim can be different, and I think he will be different. So I really do look forward to seeing how he gets on longer term. But for me, Guardiola's not going to be around forever. I know he signed a new contract extension, but I think this will be the last one. And I think that'll be a big sea change for the Premier League. I know they've had a really poor start to the season so far, but he's been an exceptional manager at Manchester City, albeit with the backing that they've got. And I think when he leaves, we'll see a real openness come around the league again, similar maybe to when Sir Alex left Manchester United, where a lot of the other clubs sort of licked their lips and thought, right, there's a great opportunity here to go and do something special. So I certainly think Amorim's in at United at the right time, and the next couple of years could be really exciting.
Yeah, it also gives me optimism just watching his interviews after the game yesterday, where he's detailing all the problems and what he's going to do to fix those. So and some of those problems are things that the fans have been complaining about forever, and so it's great that he's come in and he's seeing after just one game a lot of the problems that we're seeing and more, of course. And yeah, he just fills me full of confidence. And I think a year from now, United will look a lot better, and maybe 2 years from now, we could be challenging for the league. So, Callum, it's been a pleasure as always having you on the show.
No, always enjoy it, Kyle. And as I say, it'll be interesting to see how the Amorim era goes. But hopefully, the next time we speak, we'll have a better idea of that. And it'll certainly be interesting to see how he gets on.
Yeah, hopefully have you on towards the back end of the campaign in April or May.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Anytime, as you know.
Okay, please everybody like the video if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the podcast, and get more of your comments in, and I will reply to as many of those as possible. And I shall see you again then, Callum.
Take care. All the best.